the 60s. A time where you could be date raped by the CIA just for shits and giggles, or send wipes to the loony bin without probable cause. Sprinkle a little bit of LSD and freebase cocaine, and you have yourself a perfect 60s experience.
I'm telling you, man, every third blink is slower.
The 60s weren't good to you, were they?
Apart from those freeloading hippies. But we ain't here for that today. Today, I'm here to talk to you about Tiger King's long-lost cousin, Count Dante. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's the Warden, and welcome to my jail. In today's cell, you have a tale about a man who may have undoubtedly influenced the birth of the MMA. You see, back in the days, karate was a big thing with movies such as Enter the Dragon, today's movies such as The Raid, you got Black Dynamite as well. Count Dante had influence on all of that with his bravado and his brashness and just his way of how he taught martial arts. So, without further ado, let's get into it. You see, just like all this on my face, Count Dante wasn't even his birth name. He was given the name John Keehan by his parents John and Dorothy Keehan on February 2nd, 1939. He had a decent childhood, you see. His dad, president of a bank. His mom, working with the Chicago Tribune, a well-known newspaper. So he wasn't hurting for nothing. And everything was smooth sailing up until his early preteen years, where somebody just decided that, you know what, this house looks pretty nice. So they broke in, and with John being there alone, and he also had that bravado in him, he decided to step to him. As much heart as he did have, what he didn't have was skill and also strength. So the intruder, fortunately, didn't have a gun. However, he beat out of John.
I could do this all day.
So afterwards, his dad walked him down to Johnny Cool's gym. And if you may not know who that guy is, he was somebody who Muhammad Ali couldn't pick up. And to add even further credibility, he was also the bantamweight champion in his day. John would train there for the rest of his high school tenure, racking up about 15 wins in the process, with most coming by knockout. He would soon graduate and join the Marines afterwards.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
Now, Dante, stationed in California, martial arts was approaching the pinnacle of popularity around this time, especially in the West Side. It was around this time where he would start to dibble and dabble in martial arts with a mix of kung fu as well as practical self-defense, which is where he would mold his own ideology for what he would teach later on. Having a sort of come to God moment, an epiphany, you might say, he decided that the Marine life just wasn't for him. However, Brother was still on the contract, but there was a caveat. He could get out of that contract if he was to be discharged. First, he decided to go AWOL, breaking into cars and making up false police reports. And with the combination of all those three, he was finally free.
Now I do what I want. Now I do what I want.
He returned to Chicago, and every 2 or 3 weeks, he would drive down to Arizona to train with a man named Robert Trias, who also happened to be a veteran himself. Trias is heralded as the father of American karate, specifically being the first man to host formal karate competitions in the U.S. Within a year of training with Trias, Dante would go on to earn a second-degree black belt, which basically says that I know enough to teach this to somebody else. See, now typically, it takes about 5 to 7 years of really blood, sweat, and tears, 365, no days off, to even get to that level. And they earned it within a year. Now, you can speculate that from his previous training in California, combined with the experience he gained in the Marines that it only took him about a year to earn it training with Trias. Or you could put on a tinfoil hat, maybe, because Trias, well-known racist, he was Hispanic himself. However, he did not allow Hispanics or blacks into his gym. Dante, being white and a veteran, you could speculate that maybe some favors passed around, but just a theory.
A game theory.
Now moving right along, Dante now has his 2nd degree black belt, and he's also representative for the UKSA, which is the foundation that Trias created to host these karate competitions. Dante would be responsible for the Midwestern region, basically going around recruiting, spreading the word, just trying to sow the seed of martial arts wherever you could go. However, all wasn't smooth sailing though, because you have 2 strong personalities, 2 strong-willed men who had different ideologies for how martial arts should be taught. Now earlier, if you remember, I mentioned that Dante trained in a mix of Kung Fu and practical self-defense. Now the practical self-defense, you know that guy from Detroit, the urban defense guy.
Number 1, we move in. Grab the barrel and frame, redirect. The finger's going to be caught from the aggressor, and now you have the weapon.
Yeah, him. Trias was going the traditional route, the Eastern route of teaching it, which basically teaches discipline and restraint. And that's how the competitions would be graded. Dante, on the other hand, wanted to teach it so where if you're in a street fight, you can kill a man in 5 punches or knock him out and get the hell out of there. Well, both men have very good arguments and make very good points. And I believe both are needed in this world and in this society. However, they just couldn't seem to compromise or get along on those ideologies. So before you know it, Dante actually got kicked out, and it was a blessing in disguise for him. Maybe not much of a disguise. Now Dante could really go and do his own thing. In 1962, Dante opened up his first fighting academy, the Imperial Arts Fighting Academy, and the first one was founded in his own home neighborhood in Chicago. The second one would be right on Rush Street in Chicago. If I could compare it to anything, it is like the Strip in Las Vegas. If you were that it guy, if you were that person, if you were somebody that had status, you were there. You had the Cadillacs, you had all the Dodges, you had all the fly fast cars, the velvet coats, all of that. You know, all of that going on. And now, at the time, nobody had really heard of a full contact dojo or full contact at all. So this market run, this press run was already off to a great start for Dante. So he didn't really have to do much to spread the word. People were already itching to know what to do in a street fight, from women to children to everybody of all races. And he welcomed them all. He didn't discriminate against anybody. If you wanted to learn how to fight, come here. You can say that he got that philosophy from when he trained at Johnny Coulon's gym, which Johnny even said it himself, like, if you can fight, it don't matter if you're black, white, or purple. If you can fight, you deserve to be in that ring. Just so you understand how groundbreaking this was at the time, when martial arts first started to make its way throughout the United States, there were language barriers included in that, and there will only be like whites teaching other whites, or Japanese teaching other Japanese, and Vietnamese teaching other Vietnamese. Getting into a bit of the training curriculum, his idea was that you are to aim for eyes, nuts, and throats. No diddy.
Man, you deserve it, daddy.
Your intent is to kill every man or woman you come across, and he would often sharpen his student skills by taking a field trip down to the local bar. There he would instigate a fight. I say instigate because all he would do is just knock a beer out of some guy's hand, blame it on the students, and the student would have to fight that person. And if the guy who had the beer knocked out of his hand had 4 other dudes with him, oh shit, it's 4v1.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up.
seriously, his motto is that you need to be able to fight with the whiskey and a cig in your hand. Honestly, I can't fault that because it's not every day that you're just gonna be super prepared. You may be walking with your phone in your hand and somebody tries to rob you. You gotta be able to pull your gun out and shoot. You know what I'm saying? So I can't argue with that. So this guy makes a lot of sense when you think about it. However, he was still bad crazy, as you're gonna see later on in this video. You see, earning a black belt here was even more insane. It was like taking a final exam in a college course. If you fail it, fail the class. He would put the student into a room dimly lit and have his other black belt students come in a room with weapons of different sorts, you know, staffs, maces. I don't know if they had maces, but just weapons in general. And the student would have to fight all of them one by one.
Been hanging with the homies in the hood for a while now. It's about time we jump your punk ass in.
In July of 1963, Dante and Triaz would rekindle their relationship. Now maybe Triaz seen that Dante was doing his thing up there in Chicago and was like, you know what? Maybe he ain't so bad after all. So they decided to come back together and host a karate tournament in Chicago. And everything went well. It was spectacular. It was a huge success. However, in the tournament, Dante brought up his students. Now, for one, they all weren't white, and this is something that Triaz had a problem with because we're racist. Two, not only were they all not white, but they were really just going in, beating the shit out of everybody. So they would either get disqualified or they would win. There was no in between with these people.
What do you mean, you people?
You are graded in these tournaments based on your restraint, your discipline, and your control, and just simply mastering the technique. Because of those differences, that would be the last time they had a tournament together. He would go on to create his own organization called the World Karate Federation, which has no relation to the WKF of today. And this would be his way that he could live out his dream of having full contact tournaments. You see, now you gotta understand something. At this point of Dante's career, he's got a couple of dojos, very successful, proficient killers for some students, and he's got some money in his pocket. So what's next? Love. Enter stage Pat Hartpaul. They met at a bar, how coincidental, and instantly vibes were flowing, connection was going on. Months later, he proposed, and they were married. They wouldn't have any kids, however, their marriage would be short-lived. As Pat Hartpaul put it, he was very short-tempered and would live in these sort of delusions of somebody that he really wasn't.
It's me, Tug!
It's me, Tug.
That's right. Now, Tug who?
Tug who? I don't know. Who are you?
Me? I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Divorcing in 1966, he started living life again and would meet another woman named Christy Black at the Playbook Club in Chicago. And together, they would take his empire up a whole other level. At this point, Dante really started to believe that he was just this malicious fighter, this killer, cold-blooded. Therefore, he would change his name as well as his backstory into that of what we know him as today, Count Dante. And the backstory is just as batshit crazy. As the story goes, his parents were Spanish nobles who were fleeing from a civil war over in Spain. And so fleeing to America, they changed their surname to Keehan to avoid any extra attention.
You serious?
So him and Christy would continue to build this persona of the world's deadliest man, put in ads out in magazines and even comic books. So he put out his book, The World's Deadliest Fighting Secrets, in 1968. Now, I don't personally know the numbers or how it did. However, we're going to see just how it may have done. In September of that same year, He hosted his first full contact tournament, returning to the same Coliseum he had once before did it in 1963. This time, however, it was like crickets in the stands. He marketed it, he borrowed money for everybody to put up the money for this tournament, and he didn't get the return that he wanted on it. So, what does he do? File for bankruptcy? Nah, nigga, this is Dante, bro. Dante gon' Dante. He hatched up a scheme with his friend to, one, he was gonna give his friend the money, and then his friend was gonna call the cops, say he got robbed of it, put a police report, and that would give Dante something to tell the loan shark that on his ass about this money.
Who said something about, oh, bitch, you cooking? Oh. Yeah, I don't know what... Come on, y'all, get out!
Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army. What do these branches all have in common? They all beef with each other in one way or another, finding some way, some form or fashion to put the other one down. With people calling the Air Force a bunch of trust fund silver spoon kids, calling the Navy a bunch of flaming sticks. Marines, the crayon eaters. I don't know what to say about the Army, but they all beef with each other one way or another, as was the case in Chicago. At the time, there was this little niche thing going on in the community called the Dojo Wars, where people were just going around looking for a fight with another dojo. And I guess you could say it's the testosterone combined with the constant training and the eagerness to put it to use. And it got real serious, especially in Dante's case, as his case is why he's really remembered today. See, Dante's group was known as the Black Dragon Society, and they were beefing with these guys called the Green Cobras. So they would be going back and forth, little skirmishes here and there. But Dante decided to amp it up a notch. You see, because the Green Dragons, they were talking smack about the dude. And you see, Dante, he didn't even like when anybody sniffed at him the wrong way. So for them to just talk about him, and they didn't even say nothing really out of line. They just really called this man old and washed up. But that was enough to get the nigga riled up.
All you motherfuckers talking about, Chief Keef ain't no hitter, Chief Keef ain't this, Chief Keef a fake. Shut the fuck up.
He grabbed some dynamite, grabbed a buddy of his, went down to the Green Cobra Hall, and began to plant it. But before they could finish, for one, Dante was dumb as hell. They were both dumb as hell. They didn't even know how to work dynamite. But two, a cop caught him in the act. So they were let go. However, they're on the FBI's watch list now. See, now Dante, he wouldn't just take this shit lying down. He had to get his get back. He grabbed a few of his homeboys, went down to the Cobra Hall. Pretending to be police officers, late at night, they knocked on the door, announced themselves as such, awaiting an answer. The moment the door inched open, boom, they bomb rushed inside. Fists, nicks,
Pause.
all that shit flying everywhere. Green Dragons went to go grab their weapons off the wall. I don't know if the Black Dragons had theirs with them, but what's known is that one of Dante's buddies, Jim Koncevich, who also happened to have his own dojo, by the way, was fighting with one of the Green Dragons. In the midst of the fight, Jim was really beating the shit out of this dude. He really had him. And this dude was like 6'2", brick house, so ain't no way Jim was finna get beat up. However, just for a split second, Jim turned his head back to look at whatever else was going on. And in that moment, dude on the ground grabbed the spear, jammed it in his neck. Jim, thinking he may have been punched or something, couldn't look down at his neck, but he knew he felt something. So he grabbed it, realized what was in his neck, pulled it out, blood everywhere. He stumbled onto the street where he would unfortunately pass away. And that would be the event that would forever stain Dante's reputation. It's the only thing people ever know him as or from. Not from his trailblazing in the martial arts community or for his bravado, but for this event. The fact that he got one of his own men killed on account of his ego. Everybody involved was rounded up, taken to court, of course, and put on trial.
Lock 'em up.
And shockingly, nobody was convicted. Everyone was acquitted, and the judge basically said, just because you're acquitted doesn't mean you're innocent. The blood of this man is still on your hands. This is something you're gonna have to live with the rest of your life.
Huh? I'm about to. What? I'm about to tell you.
Stop, son.
No.
The martial arts community mourned the loss of Jim Kontsevich, a well-loved man and a staple in the neighborhood. Dante would go on to continue to fade into obscurity, having his name forever marked. But this wasn't the end of his story, by the way. Oh no, it wasn't the end. That was just the climax. Now comes falling action. You see, Dante always had a knack for finding a way to make some money, finding a way to hustle. So he did open up a couple businesses, with one of them even being a hot dog stand. However, he just couldn't seem to let that flashy lifestyle go, because he would be seen walking down Rush Street with a velvet cape, with an actual lion cub, and a cane with the lion's head on it, encrusted, you know. But he did have a lion cub. He did have one. So he just couldn't seem to let that flashy lifestyle go. And he needed the money to keep it up, so it's speculated that he partnered with the mafia to pull off the Purelator heist, in which they made off with over $3-4 million, only of which 1.75 was recovered. Before he could go to trial for it, he would pass away in his apartment from a bleeding ulcer internally. And that wouldn't really be the end of it, because people would put on their tinfoil hats and speculate that maybe he might have been offed by the mafia. Maybe they put up to his house, because he did owe a lot of people a lot of money. So they may have injected him with something, poisoned him, something. But the fact still remains that he was never formally convicted or acquitted of this heist. And he said to have told his own lawyer that he was involved in planning this heist. This marks the end of John Keehan, or
Count Dante.
let this be a lesson. Don't ever think you're bigger than the program, because the program will always find a way to humble you. Always. Alright, YouTube family. Thank you all for listening. I am so grateful to have you all here. This is my first video, and again, my name is The Warden. If you want more stories like that, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Alright, I'm out. Peace.